Well, hello, everyone. Today we have with us two very important guests, and they do a lot of great work for Kenton County. First of all, we have with us Speaker David Osborne, Speaker of the House of Representatives in our great Commonwealth, and with us State Representative Kim Moser. And thank you both for your time today.
Good to be here, Judge. Thank you.
Well, really, as you all do the work on behalf of the state and your districts, one of the most important things is you guys have a life outside of serving Frankfort. So if you will, let's start off, and Speaker, if you don't mind starting off and give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Well, theoretically, we have a life outside of Frankfort. It's hard to find that balance anymore, but I do in fact have another life. By trade, I'm in the horse business, and my wife and I have a farm in Oldham County, and have been active in the horse industry for most of my life.
Fantastic. And lifelong Oldham County resident and entrepreneur, business owner, and done some great things. Representative Moser, a little bit about yourself as well, please.
Right. Well, my background is I grew up actually in Boone County, and when Neil and I got married, I've been married to my husband Neil for 36 years, and we have 5 sons. But we moved to Kenton County. That's where he grew up, so had to be closer to his work and so forth, and schools, and we love it here. So my background is nursing. I was a neonatal intensive flight nurse for a lot of years, and of course, as you know, drug policy director in Northern Kentucky. And I'm very happy to have transitioned into statewide policy.
Well, and you all now have worked together for a number of years, and every session is unique in of itself. Speaker, if you don't mind, maybe give us a little bit of update on why this is a special session, not a special session, but it's a session that is unique, and how that's come about.
It does feel somewhat special, and it is certainly unique. This is the first short session that I have ever been part of where we've actually done a budget. First time in modern history, at least, that we passed a 1-year budget last year. The reason for that was not because we wanted to procrastinate, even though we're pretty good at that in Frankfort, but it was just by necessity with the incredible uncertainty that was being caused by the pandemic, the uncertainty in our economy, our state revenues. It just lent itself to putting decisions off, quite frankly, as long as we possibly could, to try to gain some clarity into the economic future that we were facing. While we have gained some, there's still a tremendous lack of clarity, a tremendous lack of certainty as to what the economy is going to look like over the next several months, what our revenues are going to look like over the next several months, what impact the federal stimulus, if any, will have on our budget. So it makes for a very, very difficult session, in that we have to craft the second year of our budget in this short session. Normally we craft a 2-year budget at once. We will begin actually those public conference committee negotiations this afternoon with all members of both the minority and the majority conference committee, and hopefully by Wednesday we will have hammered out a budget that I believe will be somewhat austere, but at the same time, thoughtful and responsible, and one that prioritizes certain areas, but at the same time, as far as spending goes, but at the same time, prioritizes being good stewards of the taxpayers' money.
And Representative Moser, you've got this, every bit of time you spent in Frankfort has been unique. Maybe you can give us a sense of your feeling of this session so far, and the opportunities ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This session has been, as Speaker Osborne said, a little unusual. It's a little quieter, I would say, without the general public being allowed. We're still under some limitations as far as who can be in the building. And so that's different. And it's a little, I would say it's a little more difficult to stay in touch with folks. Certainly we've gotten very accustomed to these Zoom meetings, and I don't mind it at all. In some ways it's more convenient for folks, but it is very different. It's different having a quiet annex right now. But we're still passing some really good legislation. As many short sessions go, we see a lot of bills that are filed. And we've been very deliberate in this session to limit the time in committees and make sure that we're fully vetting all of the bills that come through outside of those committee hearings, really to be able to squeeze everything in that we feel is important. Yeah, we're still very busy. But it is different.
And so this uniqueness of doing the budget in this very short period, so you've got to really approve this critical factor for the state of Kentucky in a shorter period of time, and the stresses of that potentially with the unknowns of the pandemic. And so I respect greatly your all being very thoughtful about what you're having to do there. As we move into this this week and wrap up the session here, you got, I understand, just a few days of the actual business meeting session. But in terms of policy that's coming out of the session, and Speaker, you now in the newer majority here, I guess, for about 4 or 5 years. How does that look different compared to before when the majority was of a different party?
As far as a policy standpoint, this session has changed. It kind of changed our short-term focus. You know, our long-term focus when we became the majority was to create a more competitive Kentucky, to make Kentucky a better place to live and a better place to work and a better place to raise a family. And I think that we were well on our way toward that. The economic policy initiatives that we undertook from the very first day that we came into the majority were having an incredible impact on Kentucky. We had record job creation, record investment in Kentucky businesses, record revenues into the state general fund, and we're poised to come into the next budget with at least a several $100 million, if not $1 billion surplus, and that was an exciting prospect, not only because we have been responsible with taxpayer dollars, but also because it was going to give us the chance to take that real intense deep dive look at tax reform without having to worry about raising money. And that's the part that has always, I think, killed tax reform, which has always, I think, been one of the number one reasons that Kentucky has been held back versus our regional competitors, is an antiquated tax policy. We had to hit the pause button on that with all of the uncertainty in the market, the uncertainty in the economy. It just didn't seem to be appropriate to add yet more complication into our tax system, into our regulatory structure. So while our short-term mission has changed, our long-term goals have not, as a majority party.
And Kim, you were talking about, in particular, your focus in healthcare and the addiction issues. Where do you see that now as you had this time in Frankfort?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's I think that we've made huge headway on the addiction issue and mental health issues. People just weren't talking about it 5-10 years ago, and I think that that's changed a great deal. We've been able to put some good policies in place, some good protections around treatment, and creating some standards, as well as adding to those resources. The opioid abatement issue, which the counties have worked so hard on, is something that we're working on in terms of organizing those funds that come out of a settlement and out to counties. So I expect to see even more. From an overall picture, certainly Kentucky is not known for our great health metrics, but I think we're really having conversations that are moving the needle in the right direction. We're understanding that our healthcare is critical to really everything that we do, and especially mental health. We passed a mental health parity bill just recently, and so that will really help individuals get the help that they need early, identify issues before they become real problems. And this really carries over into our educational system, criminal justice, you name it, workforce. It's important for Kentucky to be a healthier state. We're making a lot of headway in that area. And certainly what Speaker Osborne talked about in terms of economic development, it all has to interface. And I think that we are being very visionary and pretty disciplined in our approach.
You know, and the Speaker, you spoke about this issue of you can't fix the tax policy all now and it's ahead and that'll be a project for the future. But while you're doing that, you are making it easier for businesses to grow in Kentucky and stay here. And without businesses, without jobs, we're all in a world hurt. But maybe speak to that in terms of how you see the future. And I know you've been very supportive of the companies that are coming to Northern Kentucky and growing here. But what do you view in the future as some of the key changes that you'd like to see accomplished, or really the things you're seeing now that in a positive way?
Well, I do think that we do continue to make significant strides in regulatory reform and making it easier to operate a business in Kentucky. Clearly, again, tax policy will be one that drives economic policy, but also I think that we have to look a little deeper at that and look at what kind of place Kentucky is to live and to work and to raise a family. People like to work where it's pleasant to live, and to Representative Moser's credit, she's done incredible work in creating health opportunities, both mental and physical, for constituents across the Commonwealth. The work that David Meade has done in child care reform, adoption, foster care reform has been pivotal and is now a national model for other states. But I do go back to the fact that in order for us to truly, I believe, make Kentucky the competitive force that I believe it can, and most of us hope that it will be, it centers on two things that I think are yet to be accomplished. And one is the continuation of tax reform, making Kentucky a more business-friendly state to do business, but also in education. We have to continue to increase our education standards. Again, making it a place where people want to live and where people want to raise their families. And I don't think that has to be an either or. We often talk about school choice issues as either being for public education or against public education. I think that we have to attack it from both fronts. We have to do more to strengthen public education. I don't think that you will find any of us ever fighting against public education. And it is my hope that we can continue to do things to help public education. But at the same time, we have to also acknowledge that there are people that need alternatives. And do I think that private schools or charter schools are the answer to everything? No, I don't. But I think that we have to acknowledge that there are some kids that need alternatives and they need help. And to admit that they need that is not an attack on public education, no more than saying that private schools don't work for some kids is an attack on private education. So I do think that we have to up our game on educational opportunities, both in a public and private setting and across the board to truly reach the potential across every region of Kentucky and improve the lives of some of the more impoverished areas of Kentucky, both urban and rural.
Well said. Absolutely. And the tie into economic development is so key in workforce. That is the circle of health, success of education, and business success is all tied together. As you said, and Representative Moser, you speak about the additional to what he's saying about this really being, the work at Northern Kentucky University, really, once people get out of the high school system, you've been working hard to support Northern and Gateway Community College here. Maybe speak to some of those visions, the visionary ideas you have about what we can do to improve their standing in our community.
Right. Yeah, we've done a lot of work in Northern Kentucky, and I know that the Kentucky College and the Technological colleges are making a lot of headway in offering opportunities to not just young people, but folks who are going back for job training. If they've lost their job, they're coming back to start a new career, or and they've really created some partnerships. I know that Gateway KCTCS programs are partnering with Northern, which hasn't always happened. You know, we historically, I think, have seen those as separate, and Gateway is really creating some paths to higher education for individuals who may not have really considered that in their life. We've done a lot in the vocational area and trade school area in offering KEYS money to kids who are in high school. They earn this money. They can now use it in trade schools and in trade programs, which hasn't always been the case. I think it's important to recognize that everyone needs opportunity. It's not just school choice in the early elementary years and high school, but continuing education. And we know how effective and important education is to really move our economy forward. And so creating these partnerships between Gateway and Northern Kentucky up here, it has been I think a game changer for some people. We have a new medical school here at Northern, a UK branch here. So that's a really flourishing and exciting program. I've even talked to the president of Northern about creating an engineering program here. You know, really bringing more of that manufacturing, if you will, or the engineering side of our economy to Northern Kentucky. I think that, you know, Northern has grown in so many ways. It's such a flourishing and exciting place to be right now. One of my sons goes there and he loves it. It's just a different place than it was 20, 30 years ago.
Well, and I think that your all's efforts on supporting education is very clear. And I think especially speakers, you referred to this, you know, it's not an either or, it's an all need to be successful, and figuring that out, how you make sure that every student in Kentucky has the best chance of success. Because we know we have some of the best teachers in the country here. And we know that we want to do everything we can to give them the tools they need to support their students. You know, as we wrap up, and we could talk about topics and bills and things, but I think that, you know, some of the other areas we're dealing with in Northern Kentucky for both of you is transportation, right? So we're a hub, we're booming with distribution, we're with healthcare, with tech up here, and every part of the state has challenges with transportation. But maybe you can speak to that a bit in terms of your thoughts, speaker, on, you know, how do we really make that investment long term, and maybe set a standard on expectations, set some expectations of what you think we should be looking at here in Northern Kentucky.
You know, we have a real dilemma when it comes to infrastructure funding right now, and I think we have to acknowledge that the way we fund our infrastructure is broken. It is largely reliant on a motor fuels tax that is a decreasingly used commodity. With the advent of electrics and hybrids, we know that people are driving just as much, yet they're driving either more fuel efficient cars or cars that don't burn motor fuels. So anything that we do short term relating to a motor fuels tax may provide some stabilization to a rapidly declining road fund. But at the same time, it puts off the inevitable, or it delays the inevitable of how we're going to transition into a new taxation system that will ultimately fund our roads. And it really is, especially, obviously it's an issue all over the country, but especially here in Kentucky, because it's one of our few competitive advantages. The incredible amount of out-of-state traffic that pays motor fuels tax in Kentucky, the incredible amount of commercial traffic that goes through Kentucky. It's impossible to replace that in Kentucky like you would in some states. For example, California is transitioning to a miles driven formula. Well, it's very easy to do that in California because nobody goes through California. There's tens of millions of people that are around, that drive around California and in California, but nobody goes through California on their way to someplace else. So they don't have to worry about capturing that out of state transient tax like we do. So it's a long-term issue that we've yet to resolve, but one that we will continue to work on. I'll give incredible credit to Representative Sal Santoro, who continues to work diligently on infrastructure funding, and he's headed a task force for us the last 3 years to look at the long-term solutions to these problems. But it is one that will continue to haunt us until we do find that alternative way to fund infrastructure in Kentucky.
Very true. And I know you guys are fighting it daily. Representative Mosier, as these things are not final, but we've got short-term challenges, long-term challenges. As you look at if there was one thing as we wrap this up, if there was one thing you wish that the residents of Kenton County would know about this session that maybe they wouldn't otherwise know, what would it be?
I think what I want folks to know is that we have heard you during this last year, and I know that there are a lot of frustrations. Folks are really struggling right now, and we're really looking for ways to get folks back to work, get folks back to school, get back to whatever our normal was. We still hear from folks with unemployment issues. It's been a really challenging year. And I just want folks to know that we do hear you. We hear you when you contact us about things like the gas tax. And I think that Speaker Osborne is right. We really have an antiquated system right now, and we need to find a way to deal with that. Certainly we know that our transportation and road infrastructure is directly tied to economic development. And I don't think that we can be short-sighted. To all of our friends who want us to pull the money from someplace else as opposed to update our gas tax situation, and none of us want to impose any sort of taxation, but we do have to update it. I would just say, we hear you. There's not a lot of room in our budget to pull from other priorities, and everyone's priorities are theirs, right? I mean, everyone has different things that are important to them, and we, as legislators, are really tasked with trying to understand how to make it all work in concert, and it's a challenge.
Well, and I know that you're both very, very thoughtful and really working on behalf of not only your districts, but really thinking out for the whole state. And I know I appreciate that. I know Kenton County residents appreciate it, and especially Speaker Osborne. You're not being a Northern Kentuckian, but I can say that you're obviously connected to us. You support what's going on up here and your efforts. So we truly do appreciate that. And one last, opportunity to both of you, if there's any other message you'd like to share with the residents of Kenton County, and I'll maybe ask you, Speaker, if you'd like to make that comment.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Judge. I want to follow up on Representative Moser's comments about these being exceptionally difficult times. We do understand that. And, for the last year, we have heard principal concerns just about every roundtable I did around the state over the governor's use of emergency powers and executive orders. And through that, we tried to find the best long-term balanced policy we could, knowing, of course, that for many, anything that we did would go too far. For many, anything that we did wouldn't go far enough. But we tried to find good long-term policy, and that would be policy that would be good for not this governor and this legislature, but for future governors and legislatures 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And I think that we did that by and large. Unfortunately, our frustration continues to grow as we see those measures enjoined in court for, I believe, inappropriate reasons. But the courts will ultimately decide that, and we will react to that the best way that we know how. I often get asked, what can we possibly do and say to make make people feel better during this time of despair. And I will tell you, I think I'd be kidding myself if I thought that anything that I said could make anybody feel better. It is impossible. What we have asked, not just the citizens of Kentucky, but the people of the United States to endure over this past year is unprecedented, and I think will have long-term impacts well beyond what we can possibly imagine at this point. And it's one of those things that there's certain things that keep me up at night. And that's one of them. We will get through this pandemic, this immediate health emergency. The lasting impacts of that are the kinds of things that, when you look at the educational gaps that have been seen, the increase in abuse and addiction and domestic violence and child abuse, those are the things that keep me up at night, and I really will challenge us for. I fear for years to come.
And I believe your sentiment is heartfelt there. Kim, any other closing thoughts there as well?
I just appreciate the opportunity to be on here with you all and discuss some of these issues. I would agree with Speaker Osborne. We will continue to look at the long-term effects of some of what we've seen in this past year. And I do believe that we will get back to our thriving economy. We'll get back to normal as I don't know if it's going to be different. It might be a little different. We'll see. But I'm hopeful. I think that we are rounding the corner with vaccines. I think that we are heading into herd immunity from this particular virus. It's likely to become like the flu, and something that we learn to live with, and we will. We all know the precautions to take, and while we appreciate the hard work of the Department of Public Health through all of this, I know it's been challenging. I think it's time to move on, and I think we will.
Well, and I mean this really sincerely, that we appreciate both of your time. We know that this is a thankless position more often than not that you all are in, and we appreciate you making some very thoughtful policy and looking out for our region and our state. We thank you so much. And also thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure being with you, Judge.
Yes, it has. Thank you. Good to see you both.
Thanks.